Muito bom dia a todos, sejam muito bem-vindos ao Webinar Inovação, Caminhos, neste dia que a TecMinho comemora o seu 30º aniversário. No âmbito das comemorações deste 30º aniversário que tem corrido ao longo deste ano de 2020, hoje é aquele que consideramos um dos momentos mais altos desse programa de comemorações. É para nós um prazer ter um conjunto de diferentes oradores que ao longo do dia vão partilhar um conjunto de experiências, um conjunto de diferentes casos de sucesso, um conjunto de diferentes dinâmicas que têm vindo a ser trabalhadas em conjunto com a TecMinho e que têm feito parte daquilo que são as áreas de atuação que a TecMinho tem desenvolvido ao longo destes 30 anos, com o contexto interno da Universidade de Minho e com o contexto externo. Vamos começar na abertura com o Sr. Professor Vieira de Castro, reitor da Universidade de Minho, que por motivos profissionais não pôde estar cá diretamente connosco, mas que vai connosco partilhar um vídeo fazendo a abertura formal do evento.
Muito bom dia a todas e a todos. A criação da TecMinho, há 30 anos, significou o reconhecimento pela Universidade da importância da sua participação ativa na promoção do desenvolvimento do país e da região. A visão subjacente à criação da TecMinho foi a de que as universidades, para lá da educação superior que promovem e da investigação que realizam, devem assumir a interação com a sociedade como eixo da sua atividade, através de iniciativas de capacitação das pessoas, das organizações e das empresas, da indução, da inovação nos tecidos económico e social. Uma das mais antigas estruturas deste tipo entre as universidades portuguesas, a TecMinho vem cumprindo com grande qualidade a sua missão. A TecMinho apoia o desenvolvimento de novos produtos e processos realizados pelos nossos investigadores, assegura a sua transferência para o contexto empresarial, promove a participação em parcerias estratégicas de investigação e desenvolvimento e apoia a proteção da propriedade intelectual e o licenciamento de patentes. A TecMinho desenvolve atividades de educação e formação, presencial e à distância, orientadas para a capacitação profissional de recursos humanos e para o desenvolvimento das organizações. A TecMinho apoia ainda o empreendedorismo universitário e a criação de empresas inovadoras, organizando iniciativas orientadas para o desenvolvimento de competências empreendedoras, valorizando o conhecimento produzido na universidade e fomentando a criação de spin-offs universitários. Promove ainda a criação de negócios que contribuam para o desenvolvimento económico e social do país e da região. Em 30 anos de atividade, a TecMinho apoiou mais de 50 spin-offs que representam atualmente cerca de 400 postos de trabalho na região. No apoio à criação e desenvolvimento de empresas, a TecMinho colaborou com cerca de 300 entidades. Na prossecução da sua atividade, a TecMinho colaborou com um número muito elevado de investigadores das nossas várias unidades orgânicas e centros de investigação, com destaque para a Escola de Engenharia e respectivas subunidades orgânicas. Para celebrar o seu 30º aniversário, a TecMinho vem promovendo uma importante série de iniciativas. O webinar que hoje acontece será um momento alto do programa de comemorações. Em sessões dinamizadas por reconhecidos especialistas, serão realizados temas nos domínios da transferência de conhecimento, da investigação, desenvolvimento e inovação, dos ecossistemas de inovação, do empreendedorismo. Serão abordados temas relevantes, como a gestão da inovação, a cooperação, investigação-indústria, a transferência de tecnologia, os processos característicos da criação de negócios e de inovação e as práticas inovadoras das organizações no domínio do desenvolvimento humano e organizacional. Por tudo isto, o webinar representa uma excelente demonstração da natureza da atividade presente da TecMinho, permitindo também projetar linhas de desenvolvimento para o futuro. Na ocasião em que se celebram os 30 anos da TecMinho, em nome da Universidade, agradeço o trabalho desenvolvido por toda a equipa da TecMinho, na pessoa do seu diretor-geral, Filipe Soutinho. Um agradecimento sincero e justo por tudo o que tem sido feito na promoção da atividade dos nossos investigadores, da Universidade e também da região e do país. Uma boa sessão de trabalho para todos é o que vos desejo.
Continuamos agora a sessão de abertura. Passarei a palavra ao nosso presidente da direção da TecMinho, Professor Eugénio Ferreira, vice-reitor da Universidade do Minho, que complementará esta sessão de abertura. Bom dia, professor.
Bom dia, Filipe. Bom dia a todos. Em nome da direção da TecMinho e na impossibilidade de termos uma sessão presencial como inicialmente previsto, sejam todos bem-vindos a este webinar Inovação e Caminhos, onde vamos debater os fatores de competitividade das organizações. Nesta data, a TecMinho, Associação Universidade Empresa para o Desenvolvimento, celebra o seu 30º aniversário. Criada em 1990 por iniciativa da Universidade do Minho e da AMAV, a TecMinho é uma das mais antigas estruturas universitárias de transferência de conhecimento em Portugal e a primeira interface da Universidade do Minho. Evoluindo ao longo destes 30 anos de existência, a TecMinho tem-se pautado por uma dinâmica inerente ao que desenvolve a academia da Universidade do Minho e pela interação com o contexto externo, em especial o contexto económico e social. Recordo que a missão da TecMinho é cumprida atuando nas seguintes áreas de atuação: na formação e desenvolvimento, com a promoção do conhecimento e desenvolvimento das pessoas e organizações, incluindo também aqui serviços e soluções para cursos à distância, na transferência de tecnologia, através da valorização do conhecimento, da comercialização da ciência e tecnologia, incluindo a proteção da propriedade intelectual, a criação e gestão de parcerias estratégicas de investigação e desenvolvimento e o licenciamento de patentes e know-how. Uma terceira área de atuação está ligada ao empreendedorismo, com a promoção de uma cultura empreendedora na Universidade de Minho e o apoio ao lançamento de projetos empresariais de base tecnológica e de conhecimento intensivo, gerados no seio académico, as chamadas spin-offs universitárias, e realçava ainda a disponibilização dos seguintes serviços: consultas especializadas para o desenvolvimento de negócios, o gabinete de apoio à proteção da propriedade industrial e um serviço de carreira e desenvolvimento profissional. E porque nada desta atividade seria possível sem o envolvimento de uma equipa dinâmica, dirigida pela maestria do diretor-geral, do engenheiro Filipe Soutinho, gostaria de, em nome da direção, deixar palavras de apreço às cerca de 3 dezenas de técnicos e colaboradores que diariamente contribuem para o sucesso da TecMinho. Estão de parabéns. No cenário pré-Covid, esta direção tinha planeado diversos momentos para as comemorações dos 30 anos da TecMinho, com eventos diversos e uma gala prevista precisamente para o dia de hoje. Ainda fizemos, a 26 de fevereiro, presencialmente, o workshop O Papel das Interfaces no Contexto Científico e Económico, onde debatemos a visão atual da relevância que as instituições de interface entre a universidade e a comunidade têm nos ecossistemas de inovação e perspectivas para o futuro, mas a situação pandémica veio condicionar bastante o nosso programa de comemorações, que hoje tem um importante momento com este webinar, Inovação e Caminhos, onde pretendemos trazer para este webinar todas as áreas que referi, em que a TecMinho desenvolve a sua atividade de interface universidade-empresa, contará com 4 painéis dinamizados por especialistas em áreas como transferência de conhecimento, investigação, desenvolvimento e inovação, ecossistema de inovação, mercado de trabalho e competências, empreendedorismo, entre outros. Palavras finais para agradecer a todos os oradores, a disponibilidade para colaborar connosco neste evento, contribuindo certamente para o seu garantido sucesso. Aos ouvintes e espectadores, deixo votos de sessões proveitosas e motivadoras, certamente. Um resto de sessão ou de sessões durante o dia, que preencherão o dia, profícuas, certamente. É aquilo que eu desejo a todos aqueles que nos estão a escutar. Muito obrigado.
Muito obrigado, professor, pelas suas palavras. Vamos continuar a nossa sessão de abertura e vamos passar para aquilo que é uma das nossas bases de trabalho todos os dias, que é a valorização do conhecimento. E para isso contamos sobretudo com um interlocutor internacional de referência e com alguém que aqui na casa, na TecMinho, é também uma base e uma referência nessa valorização do conhecimento. E por isso vou passar a palavra à Marta Catarino, que tem consigo, que está aqui ao nosso lado, virtualmente, um dos melhores experts internacionais na área da valorização do conhecimento. Bom dia, Marta, e até já. Bom trabalho.
Muito bem. Bom dia a todos. Compete-me a mim agora apresentar um expert que tem mais de 25 anos de experiência na área de valorização do conhecimento, na perspectiva de acompanhar, junto dos investigadores, em projetos Universidade e Empresa, o que acontece na prática depois da investigação. Como é que fazemos com que os resultados da investigação venham a tornar-se novos produtos, processos, serviços que tenham impacto na sociedade. Portanto, vou agora mudar para a língua inglesa para apresentar Péter Mogyorósi, our dear colleague from Laser Consult. He is based in Hungary, but with a vast experience in supporting the innovation consultancy, and in particularly the topic that brings us here to this discussion is, so how do you make sure that the results of your research with university and industry, so what are the topics, what are the key success factors, how can you make sure that what you have so dearly and with a lot of effort research, how can that become new products, processes and services that benefit society? So Péter has more than 20 years experience in innovation consultancy, and he is also an entrepreneur. He is the CEO of Laser Consult from 1992 and a dear friend of ours. And we are very happy to have you with us, Péter, sharing a bit what do you feel are the main success factors or potential flaws when researchers and industry are looking forward to exploit their joint research results. So we will be listening to you, Péter. I would just like to say, all of us who are hearing us, do please send your questions through either Facebook or Zoom. Please put your questions in the commenting part so that we can also at the end have a little conversation regarding in which way we can better go along with your specific research needs. So with no further ado, Péter, lovely to have you with us. So do share your experience with us in terms of exploitation and dissemination of research results. Thank you for being with us, Péter.
Thank you, Marta. Before I start my presentation on the relevant topic, First of all, I would like to congratulate TecMinho and all my dear colleagues over there for this wonderful anniversary and all the achievements you had in these last 3 decades. And I must tell you that almost 20 years or around 20 years, we have been kind of partners, friends, visiting each other, and it's a really long cooperation what we had. And I hope that it will just be the same or even more in the future. So let's start with the topic which will focus on the knowledge management and exploitation in Horizon 2020 projects. Okay, there are 3 phases of a Horizon 2020 project: preparation, implementation, and reporting. In the preparation phase, first of all, you have to define your work package. In the work package, there are 2 tasks which should be somehow inserted and which falls outside usually the sight of businesses and researchers, because all these wonderful researchers, I myself, I was a researcher, so I know how a researcher mind works. And also the engineers and researchers from businesses, they very much focus on technical issues. But there are certain non-technical issues what the Brussels administrators are very keen on. And among them is one of the most important topic is exploitation. So how can you valorize your very precious research results? And this is what knowledge management and exploitation is about. The other topic, what I will not touch upon, is communication and dissemination. Why are they so keen on that? Because it is public money what you use. But this public money, what we consider is not a gift, but it is an investment on behalf of European taxpayers. As it is an investment, they want to have a return on investment. And return on investment is creation of business opportunities and contributing to the competitiveness of Europe and European enterprises, as well as European universities, and to contribute to the wealth of the society. So this is what the whole thing is about. And this non-technical work package must contain these 2 things, otherwise the evaluators will not be happy. And first of all, you have to make the evaluators happy. But it's not only the work package, but also there is a descriptive part, which is in section 2.2, which is again, not so well handled in many proposals by researchers, because they are very much focused on the section 1, which is excellence. Of course, this is which is in their comfort zone. So they can write a very nice excellence. They can make very nice work packages, but section 2.1 and section 2.2 are usually not so easy to write, because that is about the impact of their proposal, especially when we are talking about innovation action, but it is also required in research and innovation action proposals. And here are 2 paragraphs which should be developed. One is exploitation and business planning. Here is the text, which is the guideline for the text. And the other one is knowledge management. So how you address IP-related issues and research data-related issues. These are mainly background IP issues, ownership issues, access rights, and protection strategies. Here we use actually two supporting documents, which is the strategy for knowledge management, and that is handling the background IPs. Background IPs play a very, very important role because most of these research projects and research results are not coming from nowhere. So they have some history. There are past research results, even sometimes preceding patents, which the current project is built upon. So this should be listed as a solid foundation of the proposal. The other one is the new results. What are the exploitation intentions? And here already you have to define what are the key exploitable results. And in the implementation, I will come back to this point, but here already you have to define what results I expect and what are my intentions. So then, hopefully, you wrote a very good project proposal and it is granted. When it is granted, then you are in trouble because you have to implement it. And implementation also contains various elements of this, these two tasks from the very beginning until the very end. First of all, there is an expression what the Brussels project officers love very much. This is exploitable result. Key exploitable result is usually a product, a process, service, which has a commercial value or can be used in further research activities or standardization or educational reason, purpose. So you have a result, but it is not so easy to define. So at the very beginning, we collect from various partners what are the expected results. And then we define them. Definition is not always easy because then we have to ask many cases. Okay, is it a recipe? Is that a gadget? Is that an equipment? Is that a technology? Is that a process? Is that a new training material or whatever it is? And usually we put all these results into the key exploitable results table. This is the, let's say, the main body of the whole activity. I will just go into this table a little bit. Here is one practical example. What is the result? And of course, I picked one from the university. So biodegradable blown film is the result. Now we know this is a film. So this is, but then of course we have to refine it a little bit, whether it is the film itself or the process of producing it. This is again a question. Then question is also, is it input to new research or is it to a commercial result? Here I have to call your attention for a fact that not each and every research results are commercially viable. And therefore we have a classification: commercial key exploitable results and non-commercial key exploitable results. For the non-commercial key exploitable results, usually we set up a different table. What I will not go in details, because the non-commercial key exploitable results are just as important as the commercial key exploitable results. The non-commercial key exploitable results could be like input to a new research project, new training material, standardization, or all kind of non-commercial things like methodologies or open source softwares or whatever. But now what I will focus on is the commercial part. And this is why the Brussels English makes a difference between commercialization and exploitation, because exploitation, if we just take the meaning of this word, is more than commercialization, is taking the value out of it. And of course, the non-commercial key exploitative results are also very valuable. We usually focus more on the commercial ones because they are a little bit more difficult to handle and there are more questions which raise. And these are the issues which are listed here in this table. In the table, just for technical purpose, we put in which work package was it developed, who was the lead partner, are there any further project partners who contributed for the development of this particular result. And in this case, your excellent Spanish partner CSIC with Chema, who is a very well-known person at your university, they were contributing a lot. Okay, who has any background IP? Background IP is, in many cases, is a problem. We had several projects where there was a background IP, and when we defined the key exploitative result, it turned out that yes, there is a background IP, but the legal status of the background IP is not clear. So in the project, it was used without any legal confirmation, which means there was no agreement between the parties that this background IP can be used for what purposes, under what terms and conditions. So the owner of the background IP has to grant the access to the new project, and even if it is used by someone else than the owner of the background IP. Then the next question is, who is going to be the owner of the result? Ownership. In some universities, we experience the problem that they are not aware of this ownership issue. Ownership is definitely a necessary step as you have a property. A research result is an intellectual property. And if you have a property, then you have an owner. Who is the owner? If the research result was developed by a single partner, then it is not a problem because a single partner is the owner. But when we have two or more partners contributing to the same result, then it is coming one of the most difficult points, shared ownership or joint ownership. And in most projects, partners do not pay enough attention to this problem, because negotiations to agree on joint ownership and draft a joint ownership agreement, that is not an easy job, and it is really time consuming, especially when you are working with some big guys. I'm talking about from research side organizations like Fraunhofer Institute or TNO, or from business side, really big companies, because their legal departments are not so easy to handle. They are very rigid and, how should I say, not the fastest ones. So sometimes to develop a joint ownership agreement, it takes ages. So therefore, whenever we have the indication that there will be a joint ownership agreement, then we push the researchers and the engineers to start negotiations. In this case, organizations like TecMinho, they have a key role because they are the ones who can understand how to do these negotiations, how to develop this joint ownership agreement, what are the topics, and so on and so on. Of course, the input, the professional input to these joint ownership agreements is coming from the researchers. Form of exploitation. Here it is a very interesting issue again. You have a result. What is your IP strategy? Is it advisable or possible or necessary to patent it? Or you just keep it as a secret know-how? Or in some projects, even there are some designs or patents and copyright developed. So what is the form, what is the exploitation form, and what is your protection strategy? I don't want to go too much into this protection strategy, whether to be patented or not to be patented. This is the question. In many cases, the patenting strategy is not so easy to decide. There is a special business preparatory session which shows to the partners why to patent or why not to patent. So it's not, at the first hand side, it's not a legal issue. First, it's a business issue. And this is what I have been fighting with some patent attorneys and even some patent offices, that patenting is not a legal issue. Of course, at a later stage, it is. But at first hand, it is a business decision. And it is coming after understanding the IP strategy. Who is going to exploit it? Who are the ones which will commercialize? In ideal case, it is one of the business partners from the consortium or one of the joint owner. In some cases, these are third parties. And of course, if it will be exploited either by the joint owner or a third party, it's a very important issue for the joint ownership. Who is going to benefit in what sense? I can tell you a story in another project. One of a Belgian university, they were contributing to a very interesting research result, and we asked them, okay, do you want to claim ownership? And they said, no, we don't want to. Then I asked the following question. Okay, your business partner will develop a product out of it and will earn millions of euros. So you say that you don't want any share out of that. You don't want to have any financial benefit out of that. Then the university changed their mind immediately. So these joint ownership issues should be settled as early as possible, because when money is already on the table, then the negotiations could be difficult and even sometimes fierce. Okay, what will be the product? Exact definition of the product, and then what are the exploitation threats? Own production or licensing. For universities, in most cases, the straightforward way of exploitation is licensing out. But of course, it is also possible that establishment of a spin-off company. That would be also wonderful, but that's a very rare case. To establish a spin-off company always assumes that the joint partners or anyone contributed to that result, they have to contribute to the establishment and operation of the new company. So there were some trials in those projects, what we have seen, which are around 50, to establish spin-off company, but I must tell you that I have never ever seen a spin-off company established as a result of a Horizon 2020 project, which is actually very sad because that could be a very useful way of exploitation. And of course, we have to see how far this result will be on the TRL scale. Usually they reach 7 or 8 at the most. And also we ask the publication intention. The reason why we ask publication intention, because publication intention and IP strategy, they are not independent, they correlate. Because of course, scientists, researchers, they want to publish because they are measured, their performance is measured through scientific publications as well. So, but if there is a decision that, okay, we want to patent it, then you have to keep the right order, first patenting and then publication, or only publicize things which are not influencing the patentability. By the way, publication as such does not belong to the core of exploitation, but it's a major part of dissemination. Of course, scientific publications are also very, very important results of these Horizon 2020 projects, but it goes into dissemination. Okay, so then when we have these results defined and all those questions answered, then we start working with these results. And here are the documents, what we prepare. First, we come with the result description. Result description, here is an example, is a novel method for extraction and purification of this very complicated chemical. And here is just a brief description. I don't want to go too much in details. This will go into the report. So the next one is the research roadmap. Why do we need a research roadmap? As you could see that most of the results will reach TRL 7 at the most 8. Very, very, very rare when they reach TRL 9, which means ready to market. So you need further R&D steps to go from TRL 7 to TRL 9, and what should be the steps to reach that market-ready stage. So here are some issues to be defined and to see, okay, what are the steps, who are the partners, what to be done, and also in some cases we ask, okay, where does the money come from? Freedom to operate. This is actually a step what we strongly suggest or actually request from the partners to perform. What is freedom to operate? Freedom to operate is a preliminary patent search, because I know that you researchers, as well as engineers from the companies, from the partners, very, very smart guys. But I have some good news and some bad news. There are some millions of smart people outside of your project and outside of your boundaries who are also very smart guys. And they might have come to the same or similar solution as your solution is. So are you sure that they have not patented their solution, which could be conflicting? That should be checked. And this is what freedom to operate is about. And this is not only for the ones which are supposed to be patented, but also for each and every result, because even if you develop a secret know-how and it is already patented, then it's a serious legal conflict. I don't want to go in details how much trouble you can generate if you infringe someone else's patent, but it's a really serious issue. So to avoid of all these troubles and difficulties, please do your homework and do the freedom to operate search. Actually, my personal opinion that it should have been done at the very beginning of the project definition. So even when you start developing your project proposal, it should be done. And I don't really understand why the European Commission does not require this freedom to operate analysis as a part of the project proposal. It should be there. But if it is not there, then it must be done at the very beginning of the project implementation. Okay, the next category is the risk analysis. Risk analysis is a very, very useful tool because your project implementation as well as the commercialization are threatened by many, many risk factors. And here I show you a tool, what we usually use. Here you can see that we categorize the risk factors like partnership risk, technological risk, market risk, IPR or legal risks, financial and management risk, environmental and regulatory risk factors. And then this quite sophisticated tool asks how important is this risk and what is the probability that the risk will happen. That will generate a risk rate, and then the mitigation, how successfully you can mitigate it. And if you fill out this table properly, then you will have the so-called priority map for each and every key exploitative result. And there you can see the dots for each and every risk factor. Then you can see whether whether they are serious or not so serious, whether you have to take any action or warning or control or whatever. So this we found a very, very useful tool to see how to handle risks. For the key exploitative result, to understand the business intentions, we use a very, very simple looking tool, which is the Lean Canvas. The Lean Canvas, for those who are familiar with the business model canvas, this is a further developed version of the business model canvas, specially designed for innovative technologies and products. I don't want to go in details, just I show you. It starts with the problem definition. What is the problem you are addressing? Of course, when you define your project proposal, you started with the problem definition. And then, who are your customers, customer segments? Here, I usually warn people that customer, don't mix up customer, user, and decision maker. In many cases, they coincide, but who is really your customer? And also, who are your early adopters, or with other words, the low-hanging fruit principle. So whom can you reach easiest? Then you have your value proposition. Why your customers should buy your product? Then you describe your solution, and then you have to reach the customers, what are the channels, and then, of course, if you reach the customers, you generate revenues. How do you generate revenues? What are the payment models? What are the what are the financial income factors. Then, of course, you can have unfair advantages like patenting or acquisition cost or whatever. Then you have key metrics. How do you measure success? And of course, I have some bad news, you have costs. And here I have to call your attention. I do not expect and never expect researchers to be able to do this link canvas. It should be done by some business people. So in companies, it is not the engineers who are developing the technology, but they should join forces with business-related departments like marketing department or sales department or financial department or whoever. And at universities, it is together with the tech transfer office. So please use internal sources to answer these type of questions, because these are definitely non-technical questions. Commercialization roadmap. Okay, once you are ready with your product or technology to put onto the market, what are the steps to be taken in the next period? And what are the financial sources to cover these planned activities? It could be your own financial sources, investors, bank loans, whatever. And if the result, especially in innovation action projects, if the result is mature enough and the market entry and the market is foreseen in the coming 1 or 2 years, then we suggest to develop a full business plan. I don't want to go too much into details what is a full business plan and what are the components, but again, this is not for the researchers. This is mainly for businesses. And here we come after so at the very end of the implementation, the reporting, or sometimes even for longer projects, typically for the 4 years projects, we have interim reports. The structure of the interim report is just the same as it is for the final report. For the final report, and this is the real output of these tasks, there is an executive summary, of course, the methodology. The methodology, we usually describe all those things what I already presented, the tables and the questions what we raise during the implementation. And then we go to the knowledge management part. In the knowledge management part, we discuss all kind of IP related issues. It's a thorough presentation of IPs, irrespective whether they are patented or not patented, or what are the forms, and so on and so on. So starting with definitely with the freedom to operate results down to the end decision on the IP strategy. And here is a very interesting topic, beneficiaries with no care. So there are certain partners in the projects who will never generate a key exploitative result. In each and every project, there are partners who are not technical partners. So the non-technical partners, like the ones taking care of communication and dissemination, like the ones like us taking care of knowledge management and exploitation, or in some projects, partners taking care of regulatory issues or life cycle cost analysis and various type of market-related studies, and so on and so on. they will never produce a key exploitative result. Also, in some projects, some end users are involved, typically big companies, who are just interested in accessing these newly developed technologies, but they do not participate actively in the development, but they have a very, very important role in defining the market needs, defining the business needs, and of course, they will have a key role in the commercialization process. So why are these companies in the project, especially when it is an innovation action with 30% own contribution? So, and I must tell you that this question came on one of the review meetings from a reviewer that, okay, we can see that you have a couple of partners, but why have they invested their 30% own contribution as they have no exploitative results? So we also asked all those partners, please describe how will you benefit in general and especially commercially from being a project partner. And like there are some examples like experience, partnering opportunities, market information, access to new technologies, and so on. And then we go to the key exploitative results one by one, but before we go to the individual one, we put together a kind of systematic approach, how these various key exploitative results build upon each other. So here is an example of a project which will just come to the end next week. It is about using a biopolymer for 3 applications, sanitary applications, biomedical applications, and cosmetic applications, various results and how they are interrelated. Or if we come to a draft picture for our joint project, the YPAC project, here are the results, how they are interrelated, and the numbers refer to the number in the key exploitative results table. This is how we start with the key exploitative results. Then we go for the individual exploitation plans of the key exploitative results. And of course, that summarizes the development status, market and commercialization potential through all those documents, what I showed you that we require from the partners during the implementation. And this is how we present them. And this is why we ask all the people, I mean, this is the administration side, why we ask all the partners, please prepare all those documents, which is sometimes very difficult to convince researchers that, yes, you have to prepare all these documents because this will be reported. And I must tell you that I could see several final reports rejected because the implementation report was not correctly prepared. We were working with some of them because the Commission gave us the task to assist, to provide technical assistance to those projects and to help them to draft a proper exploitation report. So this is what we put in summary description, as you could, as you may remember that we had a result description template, research roadmap template, the patent search result, risk analysis template, lean canvas, and the commercialization roadmap. So all those ones, what I presented before in the implementation phase. And of course, we then do a summary, and in the annex, we have a few things like listing the non-commercial results, and also we develop joint ownership agreement templates and non-disclosure agreement templates for just assisting the partners if they need these kinds of documents. So as time is up, I just finished my presentation, and just some take-home suggestions. First of all, if you develop a Horizon 2020 or in the future Horizon Europe project, please pay serious attention to exploitation and work with people who understand exploitation, and please rely on your wonderful tech transfer office. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Peter. That was very comprehensive and really interesting. We were taking notes of all your suggestions of what goes on when you are doing a dissemination and exploitation plan for a project. So thank you so much for that. I have only 2 questions. We are slightly behind schedule. Just 2 questions that we have received. So the first one would be, first, it was very interesting when you say that public money is not a gift, it's an investment. That certainly rings a bell to all of us. But then so there is a question regarding the results for educational purposes. So could you explain a bit what's the difference between research results which are not, let's say, financially sustainable, which are more focused on the educational, pedagogical aspect of it? So how do you see that is evaluated by the European projects, and if you have any suggestion for those of us who have specifically educational outcomes and not specifically patented, technological oriented results? So do you have any suggestion for that?
Yes. Of course, in an ideal case, most of the results are commercial results. But, of course, everybody is happy when we have these so-called non-commercial results, and it's a good mix. So the non-commercial results, among them, like new training materials, new training courses, new methodologies, or whatever non-commercial. As I mentioned, these are very, very valuable. But of course, I do not suggest you to have like 90% non-commercial and only 1 or 2 commercial. Of course, there are certain projects where this is the final result, but these are the Marie Curie Sklodowska projects. They are educational projects. So if your original attention was to develop training materials and so on, then it is a different type of funding scheme. If we are talking about innovation action and research and innovation action, the major goal is commercial result. And as a, sorry to say, I don't want to degrade it, but as a byproduct, you have non-commercial results. We are very, very happy.
Okay. Another question that rose, which is very related to the experience of our researchers, is, so we did understand that you consider that joint ownership may or not be tricky. We do have that issue in the projects that we are handling. So what kind of suggestions do you have when different institutions, as the case that you also mentioned, that with YPAC, with the University of Minho and the CSIC, so what kind of suggestions do you have when there is jointly, potentially exploitable results? Have you had, is it all very clear to define who owns what or the percentage? Have you faced any difficulties? Please share with us a bit your experience in terms of joint ownership of research results, which in fact, in the context of joint research, that's what normally happens. There is not a single inventor. I mean, we would love that as the IP office of University of Minho, that we could single out, this is the inventor, it's all this inventor's results. But in practice, in research results, it's more jointly owned and with different institutions. So could you please, you already mentioned that, but could you please give us a bit more insight into how do you handle joint ownership, shared ownership?
This is really a tricky thing. Thank you for this question, because I mean, I must tell you that it is always very, very difficult to handle this. First of all, usually the partners pay attention to this issue almost at the very end of the project. So they do not take into account that they have to negotiate for a long time. So we try to press the partners to start all these negotiations at least 1 year before the termination of the project. The second
that would be a
issue
suggestion. Sorry, Peter. So you would suggest to our researchers who are involved in projects that at least 1 year before the terminus of the project, that they would clearly discuss in practical terms how to handle the joint ownership.
It could be even earlier. I mean, please start even earlier. So as soon as it is clear that there will be a joint ownership, start negotiations. And it is not the researchers who is supposed to do it. So one of the major problems is that from the university side, it is the researcher. From the business side, it is the engineer. But who is going to decide upon that? These are not the people. It is the tech transfer office, and it is the business department or management of the company. So they should first of all involve these partners, and then these, I would say, 4-party negotiations should be done, because the final decision will be at university and company management level. But the input to the content of this will come from the researchers and the engineers. This is one point. And the other point is that when it is about the shares, when there are 2 partners, then it's okay, then they can decide, okay, what was your share, what was my share. Usually shares are defined upon contribution. What is a contribution? That is not so easy to define, because that is not a technical term that, okay, definition of contribution is this and that and that. So what is a contribution? Some people say that, okay, the value of my work is this and that much. Or in some places they say, okay, we had our financial contribution this and that, and your financial contribution was this and that, so we split the shares according to that. Or, but this one, I dislike it. The reason why, just imagine the situation when there is a Norwegian company and a Romanian university. The financial level, or let's say the salary level of these countries differ by a factor of 55. Yeah. So the financial contribution itself should not be the basis of the intellectual contribution. So this is very, very difficult to define. In some places, just as researchers usually do in scientific papers, that, yeah, you were in, I was in, so let's share 50-50, which does not reflect any real contribution. So that is difficult. The situation,
so your suggestion would be, no, please. So your suggestion would be to do that as early as possible.
Yes,
and
yes.
Focusing more on the actual, let's say, intellectual, creative contribution more than on the financial aspects.
Financial aspects should be also taken into consideration. I don't say that it should be excluded, but not only based upon that.
Okay.
So take various factors into consideration and then try to negotiate. It's a negotiation process. This is why it takes ages. And then, of course, when you have the joint ownership agreement, you have to agree upon commercialization issues, Then you have to agree who is taking care of the IP-related issues, further development issues, usage in later research at the university, and many other things. So there are a whole list of topics what you have to agree in the joint ownership agreement. But what is even more tricky, when you have more than 2 parties, in some cases we had like 6, 7 parties. Then to ask them, okay, what was your contribution? And the usual sum of their declared contribution ends up at 150%. Then you have to normalize it, and that is a tricky thing.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much, Peter. We're wrapping up. Then just asking you, could you please, I know this is very limiting, but could you just tell us, so when considering the exploitation of your research results, tell me one best practice that people should be looking into. Could you make that into, let's say, a sentence that our listeners will take as their takeaway phrase? So one sentence, what you should never forget, or something particularly relevant.
Very difficult to say, but I would repeat one of the first sentences, that your grant is not a gift. It's an investment, and you have to handle it as an investment.
Perfect. Oh, thank you, Peter. Thank you so much for being with us in our 30th anniversary. Again, thank you so much for your availability and sharing your experience with us. All of you listening to us, we give you a little break. We will be back at 11 o'clock. And do feel free, or more than that, please share your ideas, experiences in the comment part of it. Tell us what you thought of it, and any other outcome that you felt came from this talk. Thank you so much, Peter. Voltamos a encontrar-nos às 11 horas para falarmos um pouco sobre ecossistemas de inovação. Até já. Thank you, Peter. Talk to you later.
Have a nice week.